President Trump offered few details when he announced on Saturday that the U.S. will run Venezuela until there's a, quote, proper transition of power after the capture of President Nicolas Maduro. And now questions are emerging on just how far Trump will go to control the country.
Does the U.S. running the country mean that U.S. troops will be on the ground? How will that work?
Well, you know, they always say boots on the ground. Oh, so we're not afraid of boots on the ground if we have to have. We had boots on the ground last night at a very high level, actually. We're not afraid of it. We don't mind saying it. But we're going to make sure that that country is run properly. We're not doing this in vain.
Joining us now is Matthew Bartlett, Republican strategist and former Trump appointee to the State Department. Matthew, you served in the administration the last time around when these conversations were percolating, but ultimately did not come to fruition. But what did you learn from working around this region about what an action like what happened yesterday, what that can do to the stability of the region?
Yeah, great question. I mean, this was a notion, as you mentioned, the first term, where you had Venezuela just a collapse internally. I remember in coordination meetings talking about, you know, the exodus of people being called something of an X-ray of the country, just people coming out, working to get medicine in, refugees. When countries collapse, they don't do it in neat and orderly ways. Now, flash forward, we have regime change. And what does that mean? We just saw a press conference yesterday that was jaw-dropping of the president assuming responsibility, saying we're going to run a country, a very difficult task. So, again, I think we've seen kinetic action. And good people of good faith can have disagreements whether or not this was justified or not. But more importantly, what comes next? And I think that's where the questions continue to linger.
The thing that we kept talking about yesterday was it is regime change in a very haphazard way, that you just cut the head of the snake off, but then, like, don't expect a bunch of heads to grow out of that, right? You see the now de facto leader, it's very unclear if she is, Delcy Rodriguez, saying there's one president, Nicolas Maduro, give him back. We don't want to be slaves again. We don't want any of this colonialism. Get out of our country. While at the same time, Trump is saying, she's gonna do what we say. It does not appear that they thought in any way, maybe some people did, but Donald Trump did not think about what the after action would actually look like. And that is very dangerous because the regime, and the fact that we can even show people video from the state-sponsored TV shows that the regime is well and good, even though Maduro is gone.
Yeah, I mean, Eugene, could not agree more. At a time where it's really important to be precise about what we are communicating to the world and to the people of Venezuela, it seems as if the president was, again, fly by the seat of your pants. We're going to run the country. We're going to take the oil. We're going to make great money. I mean, just what is the message that you are sending to the people of Venezuela? As we saw, I mean, just a mixed message about who is in charge, who will be in charge. We had again Machado, the Nobel Peace Prize winner, kind of shooing her off. So that's very concerning. It seems as if a flawless execution to take out a narco-terrorist leader, that might be the easy part. Now, what comes next? And so, again, that's where it's always a slippery slope.
If it was about the people of Venezuela, they would have, in the hours of 4 a.m. to 11 a.m., when this press conference was supposed to be held, communicated with somebody, anybody, and talk to them about what comes next and put them first, right? That's what would have happened. That's not what
Have that leader stand right there and say...
Because the flight would have been very quick, right, to Miami.
So, Matthew, you were just talking about the message to the Venezuelan people. I'm just wondering about the message to the American people, because there was something that we played in from the presser that the president said that just jumped out at me. We don't mind saying it, but we're going to make sure that that country is run properly. This is the man who is running a country where just the other day, millions of Americans lost their health care subsidies. We are about 28 days from the government shutting down, and there is no prospect that the government won't shut down. This country has so many problems that preceded him, but also are because of him. And a lot of the people who voted for him because they believed him when he said, we're going to put America first. We're going to put Americans first. We are not about the rest of the world. We're not about forever wars. We're not about taking care of anybody else. And yet we just watched that man say, we are going to run a country basically to take the oil, but we're going to run another country when that man can't even run the country that he is running himself.
Fair point. It seems as if we have a lot on our plate here in America, and nobody saw Venezuela. Again, who was more surprised yesterday, Maduro or the American people? They woke up and said, what just happened? Mm-hmm. We are overtaking a country. Like you just said, much of the MAGA base it comes off the notion of stop doing this. We don't want to be doing this. And this is where, what you just said, strangely enough, sounds a lot like Steve Bannon. And that's where you have,
strange bedfellow.
Strange bedfellow. Because guess what? There might be some truth to that, that over a quarter of a century we may have been overextended around the world. Now, I think this show has done a fine job this morning of discussing. A lot of this will depend on how things play out and what the outcomes look like. Listen, there is a chance for after a disastrous press conference, I would argue, something of an orderly transfer of power, and this could, the car could meet the road here off the cliff, or it could go sideways very quickly, and that's the real risk.
I take issue with your characterization of fine. You've done an excellent job. But I want to bring up some New York Times reporting to get back to Eugene's point about the seemingly dangerous cocktail that is being mixed right now. U.S. officials, the New York Times reported, say that their relationship with Delcy Rodriguez, that's the vice president who may or may not be taking power, that her interim government will be based on her ability to play by their rules, adding that they reserve the right to take military action if she fails to respect America's interests. Based on your knowledge working with some of these officials and with the president, what are the rules that she should play by here?
Yeah, very unclear. Again, to tell a country how they're going to be run at the threat of military kinetic engagement and activity.
Well, and there was also no mention of democracy yesterday.
What?
Very fair point. Very fair point, which is, a very messy process here and abroad.
But if she wants the same power, what is your advice for her?
Unclear. I don't know what the actual conversations are, what the back channels look like. Is this something that she is saying in order to project strength and unity and power? Or is this something that she is saying in direct opposition? It's mixed messages at best. And now we have the threat of more, kinetic actions. This is not off to the best start, is what I would say. How we sort this out, is going to be really key. I would expect the Secretary Rubio, who's been a long time, expert in the region. Well, now's the time to use some expertise here, and we're going to see what happens.
Wait, you know what just came to mind? You know who? Correct me if I'm wrong. If he has said anything about. Where's Vice President Vance?
He did talk about his team sent out a long list of where he was and what he was doing. Apparently, they didn't want the motorcade going to the White House to give away that this was happening, and so he was on a Zoom basically, which is exactly out of beat where Selena Meyer was with a headset
Signal
watching
to Zoom.
from Signal to Zoom.